Um, one thing that we will ask is for safety, if you could, I know it kinda sucks, if we could ask you to keep your masks on, sorry, we wanna follow like all Clark procedures and things like that. And making sure that nobody gets sick, 'cause that would suck. Thank you very much. We'll start in like 2 to 3 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah, they're outside down.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, I'm very good at that.
You knocked your water bottle over.
No, I'm also
You're
very
also
good
very
at
good
that.
at that.
Speak to the teddy bear and or mentally scarf the teddy bear. Also, physically, we haven't done a thing
No,
like
I just need to get one
they
to someone.
choose us and they actualize. Have to do the whale. You do the work right on the whale thing. Is it a whale? Like a string, right?
It's a sob.
Sob. Okay.
Wailing sob is what I would classify it as. Sure. I get what you're trying to say. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I just received
You're
no
right.
direction on it. We cannot practice it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because it's like, dear God, someone stop him. And then they come and then I feel an agony.
Pretend like they're walking. You know what your song is doing. You know what it's turning out to do. And you have no power to stop it. Yeah.
Mayhaps. Oh, fine. I mean, this. Yeah, exactly. That's like the type of kids that just go, you sit at lunch with them once, and then you'd be like. Yeah. No, that's me in history class.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I got it. Oh, I got it.
Thank you for the binder. If you don't want to pay, you can do it.
You mean 81?
Hey, they're double sized.
coming.
In
Oh,
frame,
right,
in
because
frame.
we have a live stream in the back, so I don't want to block anybody. But hello, my name is Tim Lucey. I wrote a show. It's called Casualties. It's up there. I co-directed with Nick Sturman, who's sitting right there. For those of you who do not know what the show is about, there's a fair warning. This is a story about family before and after a school shooting occurs. And as you can see up top right here, we have a content warning for you. So there's implied suicide, suicidal ideation, discussions of PTSD and trauma related to school shootings, implied violence and gun violence, misogyny, and stigmatization, speech impediments. So it's a lot. And we appreciated that you're coming out on a Monday night and to be able to be a part of this. It means a lot to me because this was supposed to be performed during Playfest. Unfortunately, it did not happen. A couple key things. If anybody needs to step out at any time because things are getting too intense, the door will always be open. It's unlocked. You can step out, take some time, really kind of cool off because this is a lot. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything, Nick.
No, that's it.
Perfect. At this point, I'm going to have the cast introduce themselves. Starting right over here. And they'll go down the line, and then we'll start the show.
I'm Jacob, and I'm reading stage directions.
I'm Dawn and I'm Cassie.
I'm Dillon. I'm playing a friend and Mr. Williams.
I'm Tim Pick. I will be playing the son.
M, I will be playing the mother.
I'm Nick. I co-directed, and I will be playing father.
I'm Janae, and I'll be playing radio announcer and TV reporter.
I'm Jeri, and I will be playing Deacon Connors and Deacon Nichols and Dr. Connors.
We'll have a 5-minute intermission in between Acts 1 and Act 2, and then we'll have another 5-minute intermission. But we'll have a talk back at the end. So, yeah. And on that note, start the
Act
show.
1, Scene 1. The stage is empty as a tight spotlight falls on center stage. Son, a 17-year-old boy, walks out into the spotlight. In one hand, he carries a worn-out composition notebook. He stands in the spotlight and takes an uncomfortably long moment before shifting awkwardly and opening his notebook.
I'm your friend. I'm someone who stands in the background. I'm the quiet one who you'll wave to in the hall. I'm the person that you don't think about often. I'm the one who your parents talk about fondly if I'm brought up at the dinner table. I'm at the back of your class photos, and I'm never quite where you expect me to be. I'm looking through a window on the 3rd floor. I'm counting the cars in the parking lot. I'm marking the exits on the 1st floor in my notebook. I'm keeping count of who goes out to lunch and when they come back. I'm calculating how long it will take to put everything into position. I'm building to something big. I am looking for the worst way out. I'm gonna turn heads after this. I'm making rules that haven't been thought of yet. I am the unexpected. I am at the end of my rope, and I am in more pain than you will ever know. And I will be in your mind far longer than I am here.
Lights out as Son closes his notebook. Act 1, Scene 2. The stage is set minimally, outlining a kitchen. It contains a small table, 3 chairs, and a door leading off stage. Mother sits at the table with a nervous energy around her. The sound of a car door opening and closing cuts through the silence. Mother stands. Father walks in. They both stare at each other for a moment.
Is he here?
Upstairs, in his room.
Okay. Let's bring him down.
Mother walks off stage as Father walks into the kitchen and stands at the table. Son and Mother walk back onto stage.
Oh, hey, Dad!
Hey, pal.
Son and Mother pull out their chairs and sit as Father remains standing.
Look,
How was your day?
My day was fine.
Anything happen with that new client?
We are still working on some permits to remove a couple of old trees, but
Are you
I
gonna
think-
add that, the window? It's a large triangle. What's it called?
A transom?
Yeah, the house is an A-frame, right?
That's true. So your mother and I
That reminds me. I went to a baseball game yesterday. Guess who stepped up?
Who was it?
It was little Oliver.
Father sits down.
Boy, I haven't heard that name in years.
I've had some classes with him. Last one was English with Mrs. Hoover. He plays shortstop now.
No kidding. He was always center field?
Yeah, his fielding's gotten way better though, but he saved them the game.
Really now?
Oh man, it was crazy. 2 runners on second and third, 1 out. It's the bottom of the 9th. We're down by 1. Oliver gets up to the plate. He takes 2 balls and a strike before the pitcher lobs him this meatball down the plate. Of course, Oliver rockets it into left field, and it looks like an easy catch, but that's when the complete nitwit out deep misses it, and it goes rolling by the fence near the student section. 2 runs score. We all start cheering.
Honey. Why did you threaten that boy at school today?
He bumped into my shoulder.
So you slammed his head into a locker door?
Yeah.
Buddy, you know...
Oh, but Dad, the crowd went nuts. It was amazing.
We aren't talking about baseball anymore.
I am.
I believe you owe us...
An answer? I just did. Oh. Is that what this whole thing is about?
You were suspended from school.
A complete overreaction.
You broke his nose.
And he'll get it fixed.
All right, let's take a
No!
moment.
We need to talk about this.
Doesn't matter anyway.
What did you say?
Let's talk about this later. Go back upstairs.
Son gets up from the table and walks out.
What was that?
Look, he's just going through a lot right now.
What? Where were you on that?
What?
You just sat there and did nothing.
I tried to, and then he threw me off. Especially with that transom remark.
What?
The family who wants us to put in the transom called us.
Are you kidding me?
What? What is it?
How can you be thinking about work with everything that's happened with him?
Oh, come on. He had a slip up. A mistake.
A mistake?
Absolutely.
Would you call spray painting fuckface on another person's car a mistake?
I don't know what...
What about when we got the call about those classes he was cutting?
Now.
And did you forget when we found $3,000 in that stash book on his desk?
But do you remember how we reacted when you went looking through his things?
Father stands up and walks over to Mother. Quietly, son enters in and stands in the kitchen.
Look, I understand why you're feeling this way. But I remember doing some of the things that he's doing now.
Keyword is some, though. It's some.
I know, but he's a good kid. He just has to figure himself out a little bit. It's just a phase he's going through, if I had to put my finger on it. It may not feel like it now, but he'll be back to his normal self. I know it.
Father's cell phone rings. He answers.
Hello? I'm at home right now. Okay. Oh. Okay. Just give me 20 and I'll meet you there.
Father closes the flip phone, looks at Mother.
One of the foremen needs to see me about the windows that the family wants put in. I just don't think we should worry too much. He'll be okay. Okay?
Father extends his hand out to Mother. She takes it and he kisses her hand before standing.
Save me some dinner for when I get home.
Yeah. I will.
Father nods his head and walks out of the door. Mother walks to the other side of the table and sees son staring at her. They share a long look before son walks away, leaving Mother sit at the table. Lights out. Act 1, Scene 3. A tight spotlight falls onto the stage. Father walks out wearing chinos and a flannel. He holds a beer in one hand.
As he grew up, sports ran my son's life. Any chance he got around the television, he would be watching all sorts of sports. He had a vast interest in ESPN and keeping track of statistics. He would carry this large legal pad everywhere, figuring out batting averages for his favorite baseball players. Hell, he would research stats on bowlers when he needed to find some numbers to write down. There was this one time when I took him to a hockey game. A couple of AAA teams came into the area, and he wanted to see if he could try out tracking some hockey stats this time around. I didn't want to stop him from working with numbers, so I obliged him, and we drove the half hour to the indoor ice rink near our house. There was nothing too remarkable about the game from what I remember. We had good seats right on the ice in one of the corners. What struck me, though, is was a fight that happened. It was maybe the it was the third period with maybe 8 minutes left on the clock, when a mammoth-sized defenseman slammed a slightly smaller forward into the boards with the force of a cannon right in front of us. Just like that, it was off to the races. Helmets flew off, gloves were dropped, and fists started to be thrown. The refs couldn't handle what was happening all around the rink. We saw the brunt of it. The defenseman had a hold on the forward and caught him in the eye earlier and went to town on him. People were hitting the boards, cheering them on. Punch after punch, he just pulverized this man's face, blood sprayed against the glass in front of us. After a while, the cheering stopped, but the punches kept going. It was a minute and a half before they were stopped. When they pulled the forward from the floor, you couldn't even see a face. It looked as if someone had stretched a face mask over a recently butchered piece of chuck roast. His cheekbone was broken in 3 places and couldn't play for 2 months. The guy also had a severe concussion and needed 18 stitches. The defenseman, however, was a different case. He was untouched. But his eyes, something about his eyes was off. There was a nonchalance to his face. When the refs grabbed him and skated him off the ice, that stone-faced expression was still there. I looked over and was about to ask if my boy was okay. He was laughing.
Lights out. Act 1, Scene 4. Mother sits at the kitchen table and plays solitaire throughout the scene. Music plays quietly through a radio on the table. After a moment, son walks into the room and sits across the table from mother. Son grabs the radio and looks at the dial.
Wow! 98.7! Was this the station that we listened to going to baseball practice?
Son places the radio back down on the table.
Hey, do you remember that one time when we brought those oranges and how they exploded everywhere when Jeremy accidentally dropped his bat bag on the ground? Car smelled like oranges for months.
Mother doesn't react. During this, the music ends.
You are listening to Alternative Radio Waves on 98.7 WXEP, home to all your favorite alternative rock hits from today and yesterday. Life's moving pretty slow on the freeway out there, but like one of our favorites around here, we are going to let it slide with the Goo Goo Dolls here on Alternative Radio Waves on 98.7 WXEP.
Slide by the Goo Goo Dolls starts playing as son turns up the radio.
Oh man! The Goo Goo Dolls! I haven't heard this in years!
They sit as the song quietly plays in the background until mother looks up for a moment and sees son still looking at her.
You could move the 8 of hearts to the 9 of spades. Are you going to the grocery store anytime soon?
I'm going tomorrow.
Oh, would you mind grabbing some Oreos? We're out.
I'll see if they have any.
Well, I would like to hope that they would. Well, they're an international brand. It would be weird if there was suddenly a shortage. What type of solitaire are you playing?
Solitaire.
Oh, fun.
Son turns the radio back up again as the chorus of the song plays.
Yeah, we're gonna let it slide.
Why do you like that song so much?
Of all the things, you don't remember?
I'm having a hard time remembering right now.
That was the song we listened to after we lost the state championship game.
That's why you like this song so much?
Yeah.
You cried on the way home.
Sure, we lost by 2 runs. But I remember you reaching your hand behind your seat and telling me to hold it. When I did, you squeezed my hand 3 times. Do you remember what you said that meant? You said it meant I love you, no matter what. And Slide was playing in the background.
Right.
Plus, I remember you doing that impression of the singer, and that made me feel better.
I didn't do that.
Yeah, you did.
I don't remember that.
I remember it as clear as day. Give it a try.
Mother looks up from her game.
Come on. You know you want to. Oh, May, put your arms around me.
What you feel is what you are.
And what you are is beautiful.
Mother returns to her game.
Could we play slapjack when you're done? What?
How do you know about Slapjack?
Oh, we played it a couple of years ago at the beach. You remember? We were with that family. You were close with the mother.
You mean the Scots?
Yeah, that's who it was.
How do you remember that?
God, how could I not? That was the summer you sent me away to sleepaway camp.
Yes, when we had to pick you up 3 days in from your 2-week stay.
Oh, don't blame me. Blame it on that counselor who told me that spider story and then jumped out at me in the dark. Taking that stick to his balls was an instinctive reaction.
Okay, I'm not going back down this alley. What does that have to do with the Scots?
During those 2 weeks, you drove 4 hours to pick me up from camp. And we stayed at the Scots' house overnight because they live close by.
Right.
And then we went to the beach with all those picnic tables that had the swarms of bees around them, except for one. And that's where you taught me how to play slapjack.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, maybe when you're done we could play around? Hey, Mom? Love you. What's on your mind?
Mother looks at her game before turning back to Son.
I just got a frustrating call earlier today. You know how I get sometimes with stressful situations?
Yeah. Feel the same way sometimes, too. But it all ends one day. Do you want to finish your game before we...
Can I ask you something?
Anything.
Why did you hurt that boy?
Son and Mother share a moment before a telephone from offstage interrupts.
It's the landline, I'll get it.
Son gets up from the table and walks off the way he entered. Mother sits and continues to play her game on the table.
Hello? Oh, hey, dude. No, they suspended me for a few days, but I'll be back in by Thursday. I'll be at work. My parents said that's the only place I'll be able to go when I'm not here is there. I mean, things could be a lot worse. You need what? Where can you get it? We could ask... Oh, yeah, Chelsea could be good for it. Absolutely. Do you think they would carry extra... No, you're right. They definitely would. I get my paycheck at the end of tomorrow. I could just give you some of mine. Okay. So Chelsea will have it by... Word. Okay. Good to know. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Son re-enters and takes his spot at the table.
Who was that?
Just got a call about work tomorrow. Almost done?
Yeah. Let's play.
Awesome. I'll shuffle.
Son reaches across the table and begins to grab the cards. Mother watches him as he does this. Lights fade out. Act 1, Scene 5. Mother stands in the spotlight.
I got pregnant during the fall. We'd always talked about wanting a child after seeing so many other friends running around with their own kids. Now that I think about it, it wasn't even fully my idea. It was more his than mine. It was set in motion when we came home from a dinner party in late October. We had some college friends, Robbie and Diane, move into our town, and they threw a housewarming party. That night, as we drove home, there was a warmness in the car. It wasn't just from the car heater. It was as if it was July again. When I looked over and saw him smiling, I asked him, "Why are you so happy?" And just like that, he was set off into a frenzy. He started to detail this story about how, when getting another beer with Robbie, he witnessed a moment that was so subtly beautiful that he knew he needed to tell me on the way home. George, Robbie's 5-year-old, walked into the kitchen as they were getting some beers, and Robbie asked him what was wrong. George was afraid of the dark, as all 5-year-olds are, and said that he needed some help with his nightlight. He said that he noticed the smallest interaction between George and Robbie that made him know that he wanted a kid. Right then and there. He said that when George took Robbie's hand, Robbie tapped his nose 3 times at George, and George did it back. When Robbie came back down and he asked him why he did that, Robbie said, "It's our way of saying I love you. We do it every time he gets scared or frustrated. It calms him down." When I tell you that my husband was holding my hand, looking at me and saying this story near tears, I am not joking. I was just surprised, because he doesn't typically show this type of emotion ever. At best, he gives a short laugh to a joke or a quiet sigh when met with upsetting news. So, over a couple of nights, we tried. And 5 weeks later, I held the positive test. The entire process wasn't easy. I was prone to morning sickness worse than others from what I had heard, and I wasn't getting much sleep either. It's terrifying. Carrying a life inside of you. There was something that didn't feel normal about it, though. Especially when my son was born. It was mid-July, when I gave birth to him. I was in labor for 23 hours and 49 minutes. The doctors said it was a record. When it all ended and I held him, something was different. They placed us in a room where they were fixing the air conditioner, but I didn't notice. As I held him, in the nearly 85-degree room, it felt cold in a way that I had never felt before. When he looked at me with those big eyes, I knew he was going to bring me sadness.
Lights out. Act 1, Scene 6. Son stands center stage. He carries a backpack looking desperately uncomfortable.
I've never been one to go out and make friends. I've always had problems with the whole notion of it. Like, if I didn't know you when we were in elementary school, the odds of me coming up and talking to you were exceptionally slim. However, there are plenty of people who come up to me. I get mad at myself a lot for this, though. This inability to really make conversation just gets me riled up, which then bums me out. But I get mad at myself for being sad about this. This cycle of emotions has become a problem, especially in my relationship with my parents, because they just keep aggravating it. Like, if I get a bad grade on a test, or if I forget to do the dishes and have to get chewed out by my mom, I mutter things under my breath, but not like those words you hear in high school dramas that they show on MTV. No. Things that you couldn't say on a live broadcast. I've only been caught once saying something that my parents hated hearing, so I try my best to write them down and hide them. Now that I think about it, I don't have a ton of friends. I have acquaintances. I think I only have one close friend.
Yo!
A friend struts onto the stage and approaches Son. Son and a friend do a forearm handshake before they sit down at the table.
Wow, look who it is!
Well, I wouldn't say it's good to be back, but it's been tolerable so far. We met when we were...
Freshman, I had just turned 15.
I was 14. It was during Earth Science class.
Oh, that fucking class.
Dude, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, but there was that one kid I hated.
Which one? You tend to hate a lot of people.
That fucking kid with the lisp.
Oh, yeah!
Oh, I mean, he just couldn't say anything correctly. Like, science is just so wonderful.
Whatever happened to him?
Oh, you didn't hear?
No, what happened?
He transferred schools after the Panthers in that homecoming last spring.
Anyway, we were doing a project together on tectonic plates.
Turned out we were into all the same type of stuff.
Movies, music, sports teams. It was almost like we were separated at birth.
Then we started hanging out all the time.
Friday night sleepovers.
Going to tons of concerts.
Tons of school projects together.
I mean, we work at the same pizza place, too.
Basically, we spend a lot of time together.
Oh, yeah. Especially in school.
3.5 years, and we average 2 classes together per semester.
Only way to make it tolerable.
Well, work isn't too bad.
Hey, Angelo's Pizzeria is a godsend.
You got me a job there when we were sophomores.
I'm a shift manager there.
Yeah, but like a cool one.
Oh, I know I am.
He'll give you a free slice.
Hey, if you can hang. Or if you're hot.
Fair enough.
But the best part is when we climb onto the roof after closing.
Oh, especially in the summer.
Oh, absolutely. Remember when we got those fireworks?
Oh, we almost set the woods on fire.
Fucking wild.
Totally.
Cassie walks onto stage. She carries a film camera.
Hey guys.
Oh, hey.
What's shaking?
Nothing really. I'm just getting some photos for Mr. Oliver's class.
Is this the 10 snapshots project?
Yeah. I need 3 more. Would it be cool if I got a photo of you two?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, get into a pose.
Cassie takes a step back, and Son and a friend get into a pose. In the photo, a friend gives Son bunny ears. Cassie takes a couple of photos.
Cool, thanks.
A friend begins to give Son an almost too violent noogie. Cassie begins to walk past Son before she turns, stops and turns back around.
Hey. Did you, get your grades back from Miss Goldwyn yet?
Yeah. Why do you ask?
What did you get?
An 83. What did you get?
I got a 79. It was all that cosine stuff that got me.
Yeah, that stuff's tough. Did you write down
SOHCAHTOA on the top of the sheet for extra credit? Yeah, I did. It didn't help much, though.
Hey, would you... Oh, I'm
what-
sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's fine. No, you go first.
Would you want to study together at some point?
If you want to, sure.
Cool. Do you have a pen?
Yeah. Give me a
Son
sec.
reaches into his backpack and pulls out a piece of paper and a pen. Cassie takes it and writes her number down.
Awesome. Give me a call tonight?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great. I'll see you later.
Cassie smiles at Son before heading off. Once Cassie is off, Son turns toward a friend who looks at him with a blank expression.
Hey, slow down there, Casanova. I'm saving myself for marriage.
I think she just wants to study.
Bullshit! I had something like this happen to me a few months ago with that dumb bitch Reagan.
I thought she was cool.
No way! She gave me her number when we studied a couple of times. We even hung out a couple times afterwards, but she stopped returning my calls.
Damn, man. That sucks.
Yeah. Whatever. Bitches will be bitches, you know?
Yeah.
Son reaches into his bag and pulls out a journal.
Oh, yeah, I realized something. I've been doing some mock-ups.
All right, what do we have?
So, I did a walkthrough down on the cafeteria just before first lunch this morning. There's a bunch of kids who sit around 2 pillars. Guess which kids those are?
It's not the band people.
No, even better. Whenever the softball team has an away game, they sit near the pillars.
Which are right by the doors to the field.
Which means there are going to be tons of large black bags on the floor.
Giving us a chance to drop our bags and not be suspected. Well done.
Well, I've been having a slight issue, though.
Oh?
So, I've been working with those mason jars, and I've been having some problems with them.
Anything major?
No, nothing too major. I just think the box nails that I've put in aren't fitting well.
Don't use those. Down by the hardware store, by the 7-Eleven, they sell those quartz-tip drywall nails. I had to help use those to help my dad a couple weeks back on the side of the house.
Oh, I'll make a note of it. How are your parents, by the way?
What do you think I'm going to say to that?
Sorry, my bad. Did Chelsea get the rest of the stuff?
And then some. She went above and beyond. Plus, you wouldn't believe what she said to me as she left. Good luck on your hunting trip.
Damn. All right.
You know, if I see her, I'll let her go.
Who? Chelsea?
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Anyone would you let slide by?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. Anyone at all? Not even that new study buddy of yours?
Son and a friend stare at each other for a moment. A friend smiles widely.
I don't know about her yet. doesn't seem to be wasting a bullet on.
A friend stands up from the table.
Come on, let's pick up something to eat and grab the stuff from Chelsea's. Can you drive?
Yeah, sure. I'll be right back.
Son packs his bag and walks off stage. A friend walks forward into a spotlight. Act 1, Scene 7.
Theodore Roosevelt Jr. is my favorite president. When I was in middle school, one of the projects I had to do was make a diorama of a president and their accomplishments. Many of the other kids took the simple picks, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the ones that they thought did the least bad things. I, however, picked President Roosevelt because I wanted to separate myself from everyone else, Make all the research my own with no need to rely on other people outside of the books I got from the library. He was someone who I understood right from the get-go. When he was around the same age as I was when I did the project, he was really meek. He had asthma, got sick all the time, and was physically as strong as a toothpick. I ticked off all the boxes except for the asthma. And so I felt this attachment to him that I hadn't found anywhere else. Not my mom or my dad or either one of my step-parents or step-siblings could even connect to me on the gut level that President Roosevelt had for me. I have more respect for him than I have for anybody else. Like, I get pissed when somebody refers to President Roosevelt as Teddy. He hated being called that name. What sold me on the reverence for him, though, was a story I read about him in one of his biographies. During the winter of 1886, President Roosevelt had been shacked up in this place called the Elkhorn Ranch for the winter. Right by the ranch was a little Missouri River, which ran 150 miles through the state. President Roosevelt kept a boat there. In March, as the ice was beginning to thaw, the boat was stolen by some thieves. There, President Roosevelt rode down the river through the melting ice with his ranch hands. He rode 3 days through the frigid Badlands, taking some flour, coffee, and a copy of Anna Karenina with him. When he found them, he rode down the riverbank and caught them. He then told them to take off their boots and took them to the prison in Dickinson, North Dakota, making them walk for most of the trip. The only action I ever disagreed with President Roosevelt doing was how he ended up putting the prisoners in the back of the wagon and allowed them to sit as they walked. If I were him, I would have dealt with the problem directly.
Lights out. Act 1, Scene 8. Son sits at the kitchen table, writing in his notebook. The front door opens as a mother walks in, carrying 2 paper bags of groceries. She puts them down on the table before turning to Son.
Hey, there's stuff in the car.
Okay, be there in a second.
Mother stands at the table as Son closes his notebook and runs out the door. Mother slowly paces back and forth for a moment before Son walks back in with 2 bags, setting them on the table.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Son sits back at the table, opening his notebook. Mother stands at the table, looking at Son. After what feels like an eternity, Son looks up at Mother.
How was your day?
It was fine. How was yours?
Yeah, it was good.
How did it feel to be back in school?
I didn't hate it.
That's good.
Something wrong?
Did you learn anything interesting today?
It's school.
I know.
I feel like learning is what you're supposed to do.
Come on, was there anything at all? I just want to hear about it.
Did you get the peanut butter crackers?
Yes, I did. Not to mention the Oreos, too.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Mom.
Son looks down at his notebook. Mother stares down at Son. Son feels the stare and looks up again.
Are you sure that there's nothing wrong?
Who did you see when you got back to school today?
You know, the usual people. All my
Who
teachers.
did you sit with at lunch today?
Who did I sit with at lunch?
Yep.
The usual crowd.
Really?
Yes.
So when Mrs. DeMarco called me today at work, she must have been talking about your secret twin not being in class after lunch then.
I went out for lunch today.
I knew it.
Look,
Why did you lie?
I-
Seriously, do you think that that I'm that much of an idiot?
Sun stands up.
You know that this isn't how the world works, right? You can't just walk in and out wherever you want, whenever you want. I mean, after everything that's happened in the past couple of months, from the spray painting of that poor girl's car and all the times you've been cutting your classes, do you even care about your future or how this reflects on your parents?
I've been saving money, Mom. I put it in the bank.
Really? This too?
Now what is it?
You keep money stashed away in your room, in that book, on your desk.
Have you been in?
You bet your ass I went in there.
No, you.
Yo, don't start with this act. Don't you cry. You are not going to make me the bad guy in this. This is your fault, and no one else's.
Mom.
You know that there are 2 people who live in this house, right? 2 people who have fed you and bathed you since you were nothing.
Mom.
Jesus Christ, we saved up so much money for you to go to college. Do you not care about all the hard work your father and I put in to provide for you?
Mom! I don't know how much more of this I can handle.
Son and mother share a tense moment before Son grabs his notebook and backpack, walking out the door. Mother stands for a moment before taking a flip phone out of her pocket. She dials and waits for it to connect.
Hello? Look, this is beyond urgent. I need you to come home. Right now. I'll explain later. You just need to get home. Now.
Lights fade as mother walks across the stage and father sits at the table. Act 1, Scene 9.
Then he just left?
He didn't even look at me on the way out.
Really?
He just got into his car and left.
Lights come up on the other side of the stage, illuminating a bedroom. A friend stands with Son over the bed, looking over the supplies they've bought.
You just left?
Yeah, she went off and I couldn't handle it. She went into my room again.
That's fucked!
I think he just needs to blow off some steam.
How is it that even those who can give birth to you can fuck you up so bad?
No, I made a mistake. I know that. And I let it get out of hand, but this isn't like before. Something's really wrong.
Well, this will help.
A friend reaches underneath his bed, pulling out a large black duffel bag. He unzips it and folds it open for Son to see.
I don't disagree with you about that. You shouldn't have been going through his things.
Whoa! How did you get the propane tank?
You can't be serious right now.
My cousin. You picked it up, 3 of them for me.
It's important for a boy to have his privacy.
Do you know how big the explosion will be?
From the way he's been acting, he can't afford his own privacy. We need to talk to him.
I've got 2 of them. Placing them by the pillars will hopefully knock out the sports and cause them to collapse, taking down the library with them.
I think it would be helpful to talk to him, but he isn't a bad kid. He isn't a danger to anyone.
I'll grab my supplies when I go home tonight. God, that's gonna suck. I hate the thought of walking through that door.
After everything, I'm surprised you weren't taking this more seriously.
Yeah, that's fair, but hey, if you walk by them just plainly, I'm tired card, they'll leave you alone. All the time with my parents, it works like a charm.
Just not seeing what the problem is. I grew up with people who were more violent and they ended up fine.
Everything's going to be fine. I'm just gonna walk by and not say anything.
These aren't your hometown friends. This is our son we're talking about.
That's the spirit. Surprised they haven't found any of your stuff yet.
Do you honestly believe that those stories I told about drinking beer and lighting fireworks in my backyard would really influence any of his decisions to such a high degree? Also, let's not forget how we ended up in this situation.
I learned how to take out the floorboards in my closet. I just throw a heavy carpet over it, and it's fine. No creaks, no nothing.
What's that supposed to mean?
Great. You want to see the shirts I made for us?
You berated our son with no remorse. Sure, it was a mistake, but he's not the only person to blame here.
Yeah, let's see him.
A friend reaches into the bag, tossing a black shirt to Son.
At least I'm trying to fix my mistake by trying to do something about him.
Hey, check it out.
They both open their shirts. Son's black shirt reads Annihilation with red ink. A friend's white shirt reads Kill Them All with black ink. Each shirt's words are crudely painted.
Get off your high horse. If you continue to push him like that, you'll drive him away.
Awesome! Is this just fabric paint?
You're fucking incredible, you know that?
Yeah, had some left over from Halloween last year.
Well, I want him to be by our bedside when we're old and not spitting on our graves when we die.
Sick. In that case,
Okay, enough.
we
we
need
need
a
a
solid
solid
plan.
plan.
Get to school by 7.
Be patient with him when he comes home.
Lay down the supplies.
We need to be firm.
Go back to the cars and rig them up.
At the very least, let's hear him out.
Wait for the explosion.
Let him know how he's been acting isn't
If
okay.
it all goes wrong, we move in.
We can work with him.
And we push our way through.
But we must be parents. And
we must be heard.
Lights out. Act 1, Scene 10. Mother stands in a spotlight at center. She holds a grimace on her face.
The last time I heard his voice was when he was walking out the door. I was still in bed.
Son stands behind mother, out of the spotlight. He wears a trench coat, backwards baseball cap, and carries 2 large black duffel bags with him.
Bye.
Son exits. Mother looks over her shoulder.
Honey,
Yeah?
what time is it?
6:15?
He doesn't leave this early for school. You're home today, right?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay. Good. I went to work. Like every other day. The commute was 40 minutes to the local community college, where I worked as an assistant librarian and a writing tutor. It was a nice morning, from what I remember.
Lights come up on right. Father walks out into the kitchen. Father's cell phone rings. He answers.
Hello?
I remember exactly where I was when I got the call.
Hi. Regan. He isn't here?
I was in my office.
Slow down, I can't hear.
Father's face drops as he takes the phone away from his face and sprints off stage.
I was about to go to lunch when it happened. Hello?
You need to come home right now.
What?
Something is happening at the high school. There are people inside.
Hold on. What people?
I just got a call from inside the high school. There are shooters wearing trench coats. And his isn't here.
The lights come back on center. Mother is now sitting in a chair.
I sprinted down the stairs and almost ran into several students on the way out. People shouted at me to ask what was wrong, but I couldn't say. I got into the car and started driving, doing over 20. It wasn't as if the police were going to stop me.
Lights down on mother, lights up on a friend sitting at a table. He has taken off his trench coat and drinks from a small carton of milk as son walks onto stage.
Hey, dude.
Hey, what's up? What are you drinking?
Milk.
Why?
If you leave it out, it goes bad. Did you see anything in the science wing?
It's empty. I started a fire in the chemistry lab.
Cool.
Did you see anything?
Oh, nothing. The English room was pretty locked down when I walked through. Got a couple of stragglers, though. I got, what's her name? The girl who runs out of state track.
Sarah Oberlin?
Yeah. Clearly wasn't fast enough, but I gave a good effort, you know?
No kidding.
Oh, almost got out the door because I clipped her ankle. One of the back was all I fucking took.
Damn.
Yeah, did you look at the stuff in the cafeteria?
Loose connectors were the culprit, which is weird because the ones we set up on the bleachers by the football field worked just fine.
Wait, did they?
Yeah, look out the window. Fire department's trying to put out the fire now.
I kept driving as fast as I could, just hoping, wishing, and praying that it wasn't true.
Did you see anyone on your way to the math wing?
Yeah, Ryan Benning walked out of the bathroom and said, "Hey," before he realized what I was holding.
No fucking way! I love it a surprise!
Yeah, man. Caught him in the side of the face. Didn't need much more of that.
Fucking rad!
Hell yeah.
Lights up on mother in the kitchen.
I pulled into the driveway and ran inside.
The floorboards are ripped up. There's shit everywhere.
What?
There's bullets in our house, in our fucking house!
A police siren rings out. Everyone on stage looks out to the audience.
It was then I realized what was happening
Fuck!
and how real this all became.
Is it time?
Plan B.
There's no way.
Son and a friend take out pistols and look at the clips, checking if they have bullets to spare. They both look at each other. A friend laughs as he puts the clip back into the pistol.
It's been an honor and a privilege. Ready?
No.
The police are coming now.
Ready.
Son puts the clip into his pistol as Son and a friend do one last forearm handshake. Son and a friend put their pistols to their heads. Mother crumples to the ground and begins to wear. Father follows her to the ground and attempts to hold her.
Dear God, someone stop him!
1,
2, 3!
Lights down on act 1. Intermission.
We're gonna take a 5-minute intermission. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Mother sits at the kitchen table, looking disheveled, with a duffel bag in front of her. Father goes about his day.
When we heard the first bit of news on our lawn. Crime scene investigators had swarmed our house as we sat on the ground. The lights from the vans flickered over our heads. We didn't stop them from entering because we didn't know what was happening. I kept repeating the same questions. Where is he? Is he all right? I couldn't get any answers from anyone. The police began asking us questions.
Has your son been acting out recently? Do you have any weapons in the house? And how close were you with your son?
We tried answering as best as we could. The office window was open above where we sat. The television was quietly playing a report.
A news report plays.
Police entered the school building after the area was cleared of suspected explosives. A representative of the sheriff department says that they will have a confirmed death toll by tonight or early tomorrow.
The news said the names of the boys accused of enacting what they were dubbing to be the worst attack on a high school in the history of the United States. We sat together, not moving, for a long time. It was 4 or 5 when the head investigator said we needed to find somewhere else to stay as they searched the house for evidence. We were able to use a phone that was in one of the cruisers to call some family friends to see if we could stay with them until the search was over. The police packed our bags for us. The sun was setting as we drove. News trucks drove past us before turning onto our street. We tried our best to stay out of sight. As we drove, time grinded to a halt as we took back roads away from the center of town and the high school. On lawns, we saw parents and children hugging each other, tears streaming down their faces. Through the rolled-up windows, I could hear people saying similar phrases.
Various voices can be heard saying phrases like, "Did you hear from them yet? Where were you when they started? We should send them flowers if it's true."
When we arrived at the house, the garage door was open. Gary stood inside, motioning us to pull in.
I don't want anyone knowing where you are.
When I think back on what he said, I still don't know if he said that as a friend to a friend, or someone who didn't want people to know that we were taking refuge in his house. Tess was sitting inside with Eliza, their daughter, who was one of our son's friends, on the couch when we entered. The news was on.
At this point, we can confirm that within the school, there's an estimated toll of anywhere from 24 to 40 dead and many more injured. We will continue to keep you informed when the sheriff's department is allowing those with loved ones to go to the hospital.
Gary and Tess gave us the basement. They were doing some remodeling of the second floor of their guest room. Downstairs, stacks of clear storage boxes filled with all sorts of family mementos and photographs were piled high against the wood-paneled walls. There was a small hopper window that was open. It gave us a view up towards some sycamore trees that grew in the backyard. Birds chirped quietly over the sound of the distant sirens. We slept on a pull-out couch, but we didn't sleep for the first few days. Gary and Susan gave us a small TV. We only played the news.
Along with the confirmed death toll of 12 students and 1 teacher, we have received definite details regarding what was used during the shooting. The perpetrators had an array of weapons at their disposal: 2 pump-action shotguns and 2 semi-automatic handguns. Each gunman had multiple clips of ammunition on their person when the police discovered their bodies in the library. Along with the guns, they had prepared homemade explosives that were placed inside of the school as they prepared the attack. Rooms like a storage room and a computer lab where the boys participated in extracurricular activities like the AV club and robotics competitions were used.
Mother opens the duffel bag in front of her.
We lay on the bed and just watched as the news spread. Our son's face plastered across national television. We didn't move for hours. We didn't turn on any lights or get up to use the bathroom. We just lay there, motionless, on the bed for 2 days. Gary and Tess made some phone calls for us, to some relatives and close friends about where we were. After a few days of us not moving or eating, people would park their cars at a nearby nature trail and walk a quarter mile to the house to come see us. The backyard was secluded and had enough thick trees to allow us to sit on their back porch without being seen. Some of our son's friends came to see us and expressed sympathies. They told us that there was no way he could have done something like this, and that he was coerced into doing this. They tried to regale us with stories and fond memories of him doing what he loved. After a couple of days, my husband stopped coming upstairs.
We spoke to several students who knew the perpetrators. After the memorial service held at the town hall, they described the boys in a number of different ways. Hostile, goths, freaks, losers, jerks, loners, and other words far too vulgar to air were used through stifled breaths and sobs.
Mother holds one of Son's sweatshirts in her hands.
After a week, the sheriff's department called Gary and Tess to inform us that we could return to the house. As we drove past, we passed a farm that all of the 5th grade students go to on a ceremonial end-of-the-year field trip. Painted on the red barn were 15 white crosses. One of our son's friends told us there was 17, one for each person who died. But 2 of the crosses were vandalized during the night.
Mother looks down at the sweatshirt in her hands. She takes off her jacket and attempts to put on the sweatshirt. Son steps out from the dark for a moment and helps her to put it on.
When we drove down our road, there was a police cruiser parked outside of our home. As we pulled into the driveway, several news trucks peeled out of a side street and sat outside with cameras pointed at our house. There was a cruiser stationed outside of our house constantly for 6 months. I walked upstairs and looked down the hallway. His door was closed. It's been 13 years, and I haven't opened it since.
Lights out. Act 2, Scene 2. Mother sits at the table in the kitchen. A large pizza box and 2 plates are set on the table. The radio quietly plays in the background. The door opens and Father walks in. As he walks in, Mother stands. They exchange a look.
Sorry, I was...
Staying late. Denise called to tell me.
Oh. Well, good.
The radio continues to play in the background.
She seems nice.
Hmm?
Denise, she seems...
Oh, yeah. She's been really helpful around some of the sites. We've been speaking about promoting her recently.
Really?
Yeah, she manages to keep us all on track.
That's nice. I couldn't make it to the store today, so I got pizza.
Oh, sounds great. Let me go run to the bathroom first.
Yeah.
Father walks past Mother and exits off stage. Mother turns to the radio and turns the knob to change the station. The radio begins to play the chorus of Slide by the Goo Goo Dolls. Mother immediately turns off the radio and turns around.
What type of pizza did you get?
Mother doesn't respond. Father walks over to her.
Hey,
What?
what type of pizza did you get?
I got half cheese and half pepperoni.
Sounds good.
Father opens the pizza box, takes out 2 slices, and sits down. He turns to look at Mother.
You turned it off.
Huh?
The radio.
Yeah.
Why?
We're about to eat.
Mother walks over to the table and sits down. Father takes a bite from a slice of pizza.
Do we have any... What?
We got a phone call today.
A phone call?
Yeah, a phone call.
Oh.
They're opening the archives.
Do we have any red pepper flakes? Never mind.
I-
I'll check if there's any in the pantry.
Father walks off stage.
They said that we could...
Did Denise tell you about the new project?
Father walks back onto stage with a small bottle of red pepper flakes and sits down at the table as Mother watches.
A deputy at the sheriff's
We've been
office.
commissioned to work on a new project.
Just stop. And listen. Please. They called us and left a message. They told us that we can go in on a weekend or whenever it's most convenient for us to look over some tapes they've recently found. I think that we should go in together.
Father takes a moment before biting into a slice of pizza.
We're building a new house.
What?
We're building a new house out by that lake off the highway.
Can you...
It's gonna have vaulted ceilings and an indoor balcony that looks down into the kitchen.
I need you to...
We're building the balcony out of some lumber from an old tree that fell in the lot before the hurricane hit.
Just
You remember-
talk to me.
This needs more pepper.
Father reaches across the table, but Mother takes the pepper away.
May I have the pepper, please?
I want to talk to you.
Please give me the pepper.
I'm not going to
Give
you.
me the pepper.
There's no...
Give me the pepper now!
Mother doesn't move.
Fine. I'm going to church.
Father stands and begins to put on his jacket. Mother walks over to Father.
Why can't we just talk about it? At the very least.
Father finishes putting on his jacket and stares at Mother.
You know how I feel about this.
Father walks out the door. Mother walks back to the table and sits down, defeated. Lights out. Act 2, Scene 3. Father is sitting in a pew, giving an exhausted 1,000-yard stare. Deacon Nichols walks out, stops at the pew, and sits with Father for a moment.
How late do you intend on staying tonight?
I don't know. Not for much longer, I think.
All right, just tell me when you're heading out so I can shut off the lights.
Yeah, I'll, You have a busy schedule tomorrow?
Nothing too heavy.
What do you have planned?
Well, I'm gonna take calls in the office for a couple of hours, per usual, and I'm going on a walk with the practitioner. After that, I'm going to the movies.
The movies.
Yeah, the ordained like to do other things outside of the church, you know.
Is there something in theaters I should be seeing?
Not entirely. They're doing a showing of a restored 35mm print of All That Jazz at this old art house theater near here.
All That Jazz.
Yeah. Do you like musicals?
I haven't seen any since I saw Fiddler on the Roof in college.
Do you know who Bob Fosse is?
I've heard that name before. He's a director?
Right on the money. It's a fantastic Bob Fosse flick about Bob Fosse.
What do you mean by that?
It's one of those thinly veiled autobiography types. Fellini did it in 8.5. It's about a brilliant director and how his work and relationships slowly deteriorate over time as he's a self-destructive force on himself and everyone around him. There's a lot of great songs in it, and don't even get me started on the dancing. It has my heart.
I had no idea you were such a fan of movie musicals.
We would watch a lot of them in the seminary. Lots of the old MGM classics and plenty of Gene Kelly tap numbers have been seen among the priesthood. I actually saw this one after I finished my work there. They would have never shown it there, though. It's too earthy, as the administration would like to put it. But I love the movies. I try to go at least once a week.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's funny, actually. I love the church and seeing people come to Mass on Sundays, but there's something magnificent about when the lights go down in a movie theater.
I think I know what you mean by that.
Right? It's truly a wonder.
Deacon Nichols,
Hmm?
I have a question for you.
Of course.
When the sun comes through the stained glass during the day, what does the room look like?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. You've been here longer than I can recall, but you don't remember what the room looks like during the day?
I spend most of my day in my office.
You can't even give it a try?
I guess I always see it as a mishmash of random colors. The architect that the parish hired, they're name escapes me, who is interested in something called algorithmic architecture. So basically, they came and made whatever this is. Doesn't really matter what I think, though. At least Father Richards likes it.
Huh, Father Richards. How's he?
It's been tough without him here, that's for sure. The rectory seems closer every day. They bring someone out to give the Eucharist and do the service, while I deal with all the background noise that comes from fundraising and making sure there's enough donuts for the practitioners afterwards.
If that's the hardest thing you do around here, I don't think you have anything to complain about.
How are things?
They never get any easier. It's almost the anniversary.
I heard.
Yeah. 13 years. I could have done better, you know?
I understand where you're coming from, but
His room was the best room in the house. I remember looking at the home when we were first buying and getting a feeling about it that I just couldn't shake. By that point, we had been looking at all sorts of places for so long that they all began to blend together, but everything about our house was brilliant. The realtor talked about how each room had enough windows that could get enough sunlight into each space that there was virtually no need to use the light fixtures in place. And you could tell because of how warm it felt. It was almost like being held by someone you really cared about. His room was the best, though. It faced north, but on any given day you could see the sun rise and set through the windows. He always complained about how the sunlight got into his eyes in the morning, so he moved his bed to the corner of the room where he wouldn't have to worry about it. There were some days when he would leave his door open before he went to sleep, and as I was getting ready for work, I could peek in and see the sun rising. We've kept the room locked for years now. We haven't cleaned it out because he couldn't. But there are nights when I can't sleep, and I get up from my bed, I walk down the hallway as quietly as I can to my office, and I grab the key to the lock. I stand outside his door, and then open it. Everything about the room looks different in the moonlight. Even though I can see some of what's there, I can see the small holes in the wall from the dartboard we got him when he was 15. I can see some of the books on the bedside table that we read together when he was a kid, just before he would go to bed. He would always ask for one more chapter, and if he was good, I would read it to him. His old baseball trophies and Little League hat sits on the shelves just above the head of his bed. But the one thing that always get to me is the fact that I couldn't see his face because of the shadow from the blinds. On those nights I reminisce, but everything stops when I see some of the splintered wood on the ground. I can imagine him dumping everything into his backpack and duffel bag and prowling out to his car. I can see the yellow tape that was wrapped around the door for the days after. When the officers finished their work, we locked it. On those nights, I wonder what kind of a monster let something like that into his home. Then I closed the door.
Lights slowly fade. Act 2, Scene 4. Lights up on Dr. Connor's office. A couch, chair, and table are set at center. Mother sits on a couch as Dr. Connors sits in her chair, looking over some notes on her notepad.
how have things been?
I wish I could say that they've been better. I almost cried after work.
Do you know what triggered this reaction?
Well, I was walking through the parking lot after work. It was maybe 5:30, and it was a beautiful night. The weather was clear and warm. The day hadn't been too difficult either. I had some intense feelings during the day, though.
Do you feel comfortable enough to elaborate on those thoughts?
I was anxious about one of the meetings I was having because it was a group meeting about several students I met with who were struggling in an English class.
I could see how that would make you feel anxious.
But the meeting went better than I expected it to.
Why is that?
Even though the students had been struggling, the professor said that their work was improving and said that they would be happy to schedule times with the students for extra help.
That sounds like a positive.
I felt okay about that. In the past, this professor had been known to be tougher with students because of the amount of work that they give. I was more surprised than anything that they reacted this way.
Well, that sounds like a good step.
I know. I was focusing on that before I left for the day.
Right? Please, continue.
Well, I've wanted to walk more during the day, so I started parking my car at the far side of the parking lot. As I was walking across, most of the parking lot was empty, but before I reached my car, I walked past the lamppost, and I looked down. I don't know why I did. On the ground, there was a squirrel that had been mangled by a car or maybe some other animal. I don't know why, but I almost lost it in the parking lot. I basically had to run to my car because I felt like I was going to scream out loud. I sat in the parking lot for 15 minutes, doing those breathing exercises you told me about before I left.
That sounds like a large wave of emotion came over you very quickly.
Yeah, all set off by one squirrel.
Do you think you have an idea where such a reaction could have come from? Was it multiple places?
There were a couple places.
Do you feel comfortable talking about it?
I do, but that doesn't mean it isn't rough.
It takes a lot of emotional energy to discuss it. We can save it.
No, I want to talk about it.
Well, it is your time.
Well, last night we had an argument over a phone call.
Over the phone?
No, we were at home. It was about a phone call from the sheriff's department about some tapes they had found.
I see.
And it escalated, and then he left. Went to the church. It's just, something's changed. It has always been that we would at least talk after something like this has happened, but that's been happening less and less. I keep putting in this effort, and he seems to reject it more, and I don't know why. So I waited for him to come home last night. By the time he did, it was past 1:30, and I had gone to bed. I heard rustling from down the hallway in his office, so I quietly got out of bed and peeked out from behind the door. He was looking into the room again.
How many times has he done this now?
More times than I can count at this point. But he just looked inside and didn't move.
Do you think he knew you were looking?
Honestly, I don't know if he really cares anymore.
The timer goes off.
That looks like time for today.
The lights dim as Dr. Connors begins to scribble down some notes. Mother stands up and takes a moment. A spotlight falls onto the stage as Mother walks forward to stand at center. Act 2, Scene 5. Son walks out and places a chair in the spotlight. Mother sits down as Son stands behind her, facing away from the audience. The spotlight turns off as a projection of an old home video covers her face.
No one ever tells you how to react to seeing your son sawing off the barrel of a shotgun in your basement. The videotapes that were given to the sheriff's department showed everything that I had never hoped for. I thought I knew him. For years, not a day went by without us tracing every step he took. Every word, detail, hand gesture, all of them meant something that I never saw. His smile, the same one I saw when he was born, no longer looked the same when I saw him talk about his bomb building plans with his friend. His laugh, contagious in almost every situation, rang cold as he practiced firing guns behind the pizza place that shut down a year after they went to the high school that morning. His eyes, once lively with color, dulled when he talked about the manifesto he wrote with his friend. describing their detailed plans of where and when they were to place all of their equipment. But against all of that, nothing compared to the last tape I watched. The stamp on the tape said it was recorded a few hours before they both left for the school. We sat in the basement and just talked in the dark.
The projection turns off.
Hey! Today is the day we put our plan into action. This'll probably be the last time you ever hear from me. I know that a lot of people will be in shock, and I know this will hurt a lot more, but for anyone who sees this, I want you to know that I don't blame my parents for any of this. They did the best that they could. I just don't want to go on like this anymore. Mom? Dad? If you ever see this, I just want you to know that I love you. I'm going to a better place.
A spotlight comes on and Mother stands. Son and the chair are gone.
I knew that he had done it, but I didn't want to believe that he had on his own terms. Every one of his friends said that he couldn't have. That other kid's a psychopath. He's always the one with the dangerous stuff. I wish he'd stop hanging out with him. We knew his friend, and we knew that his home life wasn't perfect, but we didn't question it. He was always around, and we didn't think of anything. But that isn't the truth any longer.
Lights out. Act 2, Scene 6. Deacon Nichols paces back and forth in the church. Father sits on one of the pews.
And that's when you left again.
Deacon Nichols stops walking.
Am I correct?
Yes. I knew him. I know him. He couldn't have.
Of course you did.
He was a hard worker. Even though I was busy, he was always bringing home good grades.
I believe it.
He could light up a room with his smile.
I
He was the ideal that all the family saw in the neighborhood. Everyone on our street would ask us how we raised our boys so well, how they could improve their own children.
But do you trust your wife in this case?
What?
She told you about these tapes, yes? She went to the station and saw it with her own 2 eyes. Do you remember when we talked for the first time? When you were sitting in the parking lot all those years ago. We talked about Psalm 143, verse 8.
Let the morning bring me word.
Of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. That's right. You had a fight with her about her parents coming and paying for the arrangements. You wanted to, but she had already called her parents instead. I let you inside of the church, and you left in a calmer state. We need to find that again. That care, that feeling, I know.
It's gone.
What's gone?
All of it.
All of...
The love that I carried for her. We haven't been able to agree on anything. We've grown farther and farther apart.
But
and
you aren't communicating.
what else is there to communicate anymore?
You can still tell each other that you care. You can push for a better life
Father
together.
stands quickly and violently, making Deacon Nichols react in fear as Father stands over him.
What communicating? That's all gone now. She believes that my son, my boy, went willingly into that school and killed all of those kids with that friend. Some of those kids that grew up on our street.
Take a moment.
Why should I? For years, this has happened over and over again. We can't go out into public without her apologizing to people. We can't live a normal life everywhere we go that's the same finger pointing and damning. They let this happen, they say. They should have paid closer attention to their child. We did. We did everything we could.
Father grabs Deacon Nichols' collar and pulls him close.
This can't be weighted on my shoulders. I wasn't there. I never held a gun. My boy was coerced into doing it.
Stop!
Silence. They both stare at each other for a moment. Father lets go and stares off into the distance.
This is a test. Yes, it must be.
What is?
All of these years, this has been a test from God.
No, it's not.
No, it is. Father, which is in heaven, for he maketh the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust.
Matthew 5, verse 45.
These years of torment and social isolation led me back to one place, the church. I left the faith when I went to college, but I came back and professed my love for God because he knows what is right. He fights away the sinners. He protects me from Satan. He knows me better than I know myself. He knows that my son is an innocent boy. He's putting me through what he subjected Job to. And like Job, I don't intend on losing myself to this. You understand, don't you?
Lights fade out. Act 2, Scene 7. The house is dark as Father sits at the dining room table. The front door opens as Mother walks in and turns on the light. A newspaper sits on the table.
Hi.
Hi.
Mother walks into the kitchen and stands at the end of the table.
Do you want to sit?
I don't know if I want to right now.
Why's that?
I had a visitor at the office today.
Oh,
Yes.
well, what did they want?
He told me about someone who stopped by his place of business.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it
It wasn't anyone I work with.
What line of business were they in?
The spiritual welfare of the general public. And he was immensely concerned about your welfare.
Bullshit.
Oh no, he is. He truly is.
Well, what did he tell you?
Lots of things. He was terrified to tell you the truth. He thought he was going to be in physical danger.
He wasn't.
He drove from a close associate's house. He said in all of his years in working...
He had no right to speak
I'm
with
happy
you.
he did, though. Now I understand.
Understand what?
You are racked with more guilt than you know.
Guilt.
I see every time you walk out the door, every time you look around your office, every time you unlock his door.
Don't fucking start with
We
me.
had an agreement.
So what?
I thought we were trying to
Do
heal.
you think we've been able to?
I have been! I've been trying as best as I can.
Oh, I'm at fault for this now because I'm not trying.
No, you!
Then what do you want me to do? This was all meant to happen, you know.
Mother turns.
Stop.
It's true.
Don't say things like that.
This is all.
You don't get to say that. You don't get to give me this cop-out bullshit. He wasn't coerced, and you know it.
He was a good kid. He was made in a good home.
He hid weapons in our house. He made explosives in our basement. We just weren't looking hard enough.
This is our book of Job.
You can't quote the Bible and absolve yourself of this. We fucked up. This wasn't just you or me. We missed these signs. He would divert our attention and
Stop.
distract us with white lies.
Stop.
And if you ever came to see the tapes, you would have understood.
Stop!
That was our son.
No. That was your son.
They both stare at each other as the lights fade out. Act 2, Scene 8. Son walks onto stage as the spotlight falls center. Mother and father slowly turn and walk away from each other.
Sam's storage facility is a small storage facility off the highway 3 hours north of my parents' house. It was the last place my parents would ever go with each other before moving away to opposite sides of the country. When they arrived with the moving truck on the agreed upon mid-fall Tuesday, the parking lot was near empty. As Sam's 3 sons unloaded the truck, Sam talked to my parents about the deal they had made. They'd split the monthly fee, sign under a different name, and once they had both died, Sam could destroy everything inside the container. Sam's sons moved quickly as they loaded my bed into the freight elevator, taking it all the way up to the top floor and walking all the way down to the corner locker right next to the owner's office. My parents made sure not to label their name onto anything that could be linked back to them. When Sam asked them if it was difficult, they said nothing as they signed the last document. When they finally left, they drove straight back to the house and grabbed the last of their belongings before my mom took a cab to the airport to fly to my aunt's house in upstate New York. My dad, he stayed out half an hour longer before beginning the drive out to Northern California to my grandfather's. On the airplane, my mom reached into her carry-on and took out a photo album of me and her when I was real young. When someone asked her who the child was in the photos, she said, "The reason why I'm alive."
Lights out. Act 2, Scene 9. Mother paces in a room. 3 chairs are set at center stage. A door is set just off center. A small coffee table sits in the middle of the chairs. A box of Kleenex sits on it. There's a knock on the door. Mother stops pacing.
Come in!
The door opens, and Mr. Williams enters.
Hello, Mr. Williams.
Mother extends her hand for a handshake. Mr. Williams looks at her hand and takes a moment before shaking it.
Is Cassie here with you?
Mr. Williams shoots Mother a look as Cassie's name is mentioned. He walks over to the door and motions outside of it. Cassie Williams, a young woman, walks in. Mother takes a look at her and takes a pained breath.
Hi, Cassie.
Hello.
They all stand for a moment.
Would you like to sit down?
They all make their way over to the chairs and take a seat. As they do so, Mother takes a moment to compose herself.
Cassie, I just want to thank you for coming to speak with me today.
Of course.
I want you to let you know that anything you say in this room will never leave this room.
Okay.
And that you are the first person in a long list who I'm going to speak to about this. So with this in mind, I want you to speak freely. I am not going to stop you. You can talk for the entire hour we have. You don't have to speak at all, but I want you to be heard.
Cassie pulls out a piece of paper.
I have written some things down, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
It pains me to think of biology class. It's a subject that I once loved with a passion. I had been infatuated with it ever since I was young. My dad and I would go down to the pond by our house and look at the tadpoles that would collect themselves by these tall reeds. We would watch them swim through the water and come back later in the summer and see that they had developed into frogs. That evolution, that miracle of life held my interest for many years. Science projects were made, class reports were given, and I found myself in some of the higher level science classes in high school. When I took biology in high school, I met your son. I don't say his name because whenever I do,
Cassie takes a moment to compose herself. Mother begins to reach over to grab a Kleenex for Cassie, but Mr. Williams reaches for it first, shooting Mother a look. Cassie wipes her tears away.
Where did I leave off? Whenever I do, I become upset. He was someone who you never expected to turn out the way he did. Early in the year, even though he was quiet, he was smart. I hope that you know that. We never really crossed paths that often, but whenever we did, he would give me a wave. To think that one day he would commit and act like this is beyond me. On the morning of when it all happened, I was in biology. We had just started a new topic on biomes and how they are structured. During this, there was a strange echo that came from the hallway. It sounded like a bunch of people had clapped at the same time. My friend Jenny thought that it was just the choir doing some exercise based around rhythm or something. Then we heard it again. This time, it was closer. Someone ran down through the hallway screaming before we heard a gunshot ring out. We all ducked beneath our tables. Our teacher, Mr. Walter, ran to shut the door. Then everyone was silent under all our tables. Despite Ginny hating him for years, she was holding Tristan Benoit's hand. They had hated each other ever since the second grade over something she couldn't even remember. I asked her why she did that at the memorial service at the town hall. She said she didn't even notice. I was fortunate enough to be under the table next to Mr. Walter's desk where I could use a landline. The line wasn't long enough to move the phone to the ground, so I was crouched as I began dialing. Then he was at the door.
Cassie stops reading and looks at Mother, who looks devastated. Mr. Williams is near tears as Cassie holds his hand.
I don't know what happened or why it happened the way it did, but we looked at each other for a moment. He didn't look the usual way I knew him, but did at the same time. He stood outside of the door frame as I was on the phone, and he just waved. We stared for a while longer before he left. I finished making 2 calls, one to my dad and one to...
Cassie.
Mr. Williams wipes tears away from his face, letting go of Cassie's hand.
I used to believe that. If I ever saw you in public, I would chase you down in the street and inflict the same amount of terror that my daughter went through. I felt that at that time, the feeling of staring into your eyes as you cowered in fear would be able to satisfy the anger and anxiety that would have made me think that things would go back to normal. That's not the case. I know that you were in pain and you have lost more than you ever wanted to. But as a parent, I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you yet.
Mr. Williams stands up from his chair and walks out the door, slamming it in the process. Cassie and Mother stand at the same time.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm expecting a lot of these reactions over the coming weeks.
Of course. Where else are you going?
As of right now, I have some meetings in New York, one with a photographer who knew my son from some classes, and then I'll work my way west and give some talks at a couple of universities.
That's good.
What is?
This, you willing to meet with us? Thank you. Can I ask you to do something for me? Whenever you finish speaking to someone about this, ask yourself, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
No, I mean to yourself. I use it every day. It'll help you when you dissociate.
I will. Thank you.
Cassie nods and walks out of the door. Mother sits down.
Well, how are you?
Lights out. The end.
thank you so much for coming. We're gonna take 5 so we can breathe and get some water, and so you guys can breathe and get some water and use the bathroom and take care of yourselves. And then we're gonna come back and do a short talk back. So please stick around if you'd like to, but that's all we have. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Five.